Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our weekly briefing. This week we'll be talking about food systems, food security, and making sure that folks in our community have access to healthy food. But first, we're going to start with our regular public health update. So we have Janelle Heinrich, who's the director of Madison Dane County Public Health.
Good morning. I'm happy to be here with you again today and to be able to share some continued good news. We always start with the data, and to go there, our 14-day average of cases per day is 215. That's down from 252 last week. Our 7-day average is 178, and that's down from 250 last week. Cases are continuing to decline, and our percent positivity is also declining. Hospitalizations have begun to decline, but are still at very high levels. And despite this decreasing trend, according to the Department of Health Services, Dane County still has a very high level of activity of COVID. Since it's Thursday, and we'll release our data snapshot later today, I have a few more details to share right now. As of today, we have 30,910 people who have been diagnosed with COVID since the beginning of this pandemic in Dane County. 1,061 people have been diagnosed with COVID in the last week. The overall rate of cases in Dane County was 33 per 100,000. As I said previously, hospitalizations have stabilized but remain high. Right now, there are 132 people hospitalized with COVID in Dane County, and we're seeing hospitalizations in nearly every age group. Given these declining case counts, I'm happy to report we are able to contact all cases and their close contacts for follow-up, moving us out of the crisis model that we have been in since late October. And with this data, which we always use to inform our policy decisions, we issued order number 11, which has been in effect since 12:01 on Wednesday a.m. This order mirrors much of the previous order number 9 and allows indoor gatherings of up to 10 people with physical distancing and face coverings, and allows outdoor gatherings of up to 25 people with physical distancing. When order number 10 was issued on November 17th, the 7-day case average was 487, and 158 people were hospitalized with COVID. Today, the 7-day case average is 178, and there are 132 people hospitalized. Although small gatherings are allowed, it is still safest to only gather with household members, as gatherings remain a driver of spread. Over a quarter of all people diagnosed with COVID report attending a gathering in the 2 weeks prior to their diagnosis. This has remained consistent throughout the pandemic, fairly consistent, but when more illness is circulating, this creates a greater risk of transmission. This year has been a challenging one, but there's hope on the horizon. Things are looking better for Dane County and much of Wisconsin right now, in that the burden of COVID has been declining for a number of weeks, but we are still experiencing a significant health crisis. We are not out of the woods yet. Vaccine has started to become available in Dane County and throughout the country, but will not be widely available until later in 2021. Until then, we must remain vigilant and continue to practice all the things that will keep us well. I have said this before, but I will ask this of you again. Please consider how, whatever you celebrate, to celebrate differently this year. Please consider postponing your traditional gatherings until later in 2021, when the risk of transmission of COVID is lower, or find ways to do it outside. And if you do gather, please wear a mask, keep your distance, avoid close contact, keep the numbers small, and stay outdoors. Thank you, and stay well.
Thank you, Janelle. And I just want to emphasize, particularly with respect to the new order, it's been 315 days since we had the first case of COVID-19 here in Dane County. And we said from the very first day that our response to this virus would follow the data. And that's what we're doing with this order and with every order that Public Health has put out. So I want to thank everybody who is doing a good job of wearing their masks and washing their hands and keeping that 6-foot distance. We do need to keep it up so that our numbers, both in terms of cases and in terms of hospitalizations, go down. So again, mask up, wash your hands, keep your distance, take it outside if you can. Next, we're going to hear from our food policy coordinator, George Reistad, who's going to talk about healthy community food systems.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm here to talk about an exciting new announcement, which is the launch of our Healthy Community Food Systems Fund. If I can get the PDF working. So just want to go over an overview of today's presentation. We're going to do a bit of background and also go over the components of the fund itself. So a bit of background. As we all know, 2020 has been a challenging year, a year of profound change. The country is dealing with a racial reckoning and a public health and economic crisis created by COVID-19. As such, in 2021, the mayor, with the support of policymakers and staffers, have repurposed existing funding from the city into an umbrella fund, the Healthy Community Food Systems Fund. And I'm sorry, it's a little hard to, and so this fund is going to support community food systems investments in a variety of ways. So the city has not been immune to the financial challenges that have rocked this nation and rocked the world because of COVID-19. And so we've had to be creative in how we've addressed certain issues within our community. And so from a food systems perspective, we've been able to actually take $268,000 in prior existing funding and repurpose that into this Healthy Community Food Systems Fund, which basically has 3 buckets or 3 components. The first is the Community Food Access Competitive Grants Program. So this is essentially an expansion of the existing seed grants. It takes $50,000 from the 2021 Seed Grants Fund and $100,000 from past budgeted funds for the Healthy Retail Access Program and combines them into a $150,000 fund, which is available for community-based organizations to access and to apply for. And that actually opens today and will be closing on January 29th. And so this gives organizations the wherewithal to be able to address community food systems issues within their neighborhoods. And this goes up from $10,000 from past seed grant caps to $25,000. So a major increase in terms of what individual organizations are able to do. The second component of this fund is the Rapid Food Access and Food Entrepreneur Support Program. So this is $100,000 that we have made available from the city to be able to support organizations and initiatives that have the dual goal of feeding hungry residents and residents in need within the city of Madison, and also supporting food systems entrepreneurs, restaurateurs, vendors, and caterers within the city. And so we will actually have an announcement from Francesca Hong a bit later here that explains the work that funding has done for her organization, Cook It Forward. And we were also able to fund another organization, the Northside Planning Council, through the Feed to Go initiative and their community feeding efforts. The last one I'll touch on very briefly because it's still in process and we're still figuring out ways to utilize this funding from a recovery and resiliency perspective. But this is the regional food systems planning process. And so this allocated $18,000 to be able to actually look at how do we address food systems issues and identify impactful food systems issues on a regional level moving forward. In light of all of the challenges and changes that COVID has wrought, we need to be nimble, we need to be resilient, and so this regional planning process for food systems issues is a collaboration between the Madison Food Policy Council and the Dane County Food Council. And so we will be working with city and county planning staff, as well as potential third-party providers to map out what are the most impactful issues for our region, how can we work with community residents to figure out how to make investments, policy changes, and programs that impact people moving forward. So there will be more announcements on that process moving forward into 2021. And I think that's where we can leave it for now. I'll bring the mayor back up to introduce Francesca.
Thank you, George. So I just want to emphasize again that the Community Food Access Fund is open for applications, and those are grants that are available to community-based organizations. You can apply today, and I'm sure you can find the information on the City of Madison website, and we'll also be putting out a release with more information on those grants and how to apply for them. And now I'm very, very pleased to introduce Representative-elect Francesca Hong, who is going to talk more about accessing healthy food in our community, and particularly the Cook It Forward program.
Thank you so much, Mayor Rhodes-Conway, George, the Madison Food Policy Council. Since our inception, Cook It Forward Madison continues to be a strong collaboration between independent restaurants, grassroots organizations, and nonprofits. Our mission is to aggregate healthy, individually packaged meals across restaurants to combat food insecurity and partner with local community food stakeholders and uplift the entire food system as we do so. In order to respond to oftentimes compounding and right now overlapping crises exposed and exacerbated by this pandemic, we knew we had to create a comprehensive and inclusive program focused on building equity and strengthening our community. We feel this model of aggregating meals across restaurants is the wave of the future, as restaurants are now adept at packaging meals to go and can be a critical piece of the puzzle in helping to produce meals for those in need. Our program purchases healthy, individually packaged meals crafted with local ingredients from our amazing local farms. And then we partner with other local companies, including RE Golden Produce, to deliver these meals to central distribution sites with the help of Collaboration for Good. We coordinate with last mile delivery drivers to ensure that these meals get into the hands of our neediest neighbors. Most importantly, we ensure that those involved in providing those services are compensated along the way. With this new partnership with the City of Madison, we will be able to collaborate further and continue to take lead from amazing community activists and leaders like Jacqueline Hunt, Alnisa Allgood, Terrell Wilhelmy, and many more who have already responded so swiftly to the needs of their communities during this pandemic. We will be able to onboard more local restaurants and support their ecosystems during what is surely going to be the darkest winter for many in our sector. The ability to supplement their income during the most difficult sales months, even before this pandemic, will allow our restaurant partners to help keep workers employed and their doors open. And most importantly, we will be able to provide meals to more families with the help of our collaborators at Culturally Rooted, Kennedy Heights Community Center, Allied Wellness, Foster of Dane County, Freedom Inc., and Urban Triage. We are overwhelmingly grateful to be able to continue this work and look forward to future partnerships with our local municipal entities, nonprofits, and grassroots organizations. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's such a great program, and I'm really grateful to all of the folks on the team, on the Cook It Forward team, and everybody who's helping to make this a success, and just really pleased that we can support this from the city. So thanks again to everybody who's involved. We have a number of updates as well, and then we'll get to questions. So first of all, I just want to let folks know that Public Health has launched a new web page so that you can stay up to date on information about the COVID-19 vaccines. It outlines the authorization process and prioritization as the rollout of vaccines begins. The first vaccine has been authorized for emergency use, as I'm sure you know, and some of our frontline healthcare workers in Dane County have received the vaccine already this week, which is very exciting. We expect that a second vaccine may be authorized for use soon. And both of those vaccines, both the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccines, have a 95% effectiveness result in trials. I do want to say that even though we have vaccines approved and on their way to approval, there will not be enough doses of the vaccines right away to vaccinate everyone. So I encourage folks to stay tuned on this new webpage that Public Health has developed and to sign up for blog updates from Public Health to stay informed about availability and prioritization of the vaccines. So that website is publichealthmdc.com/coronavirus/COVID-19-vaccine. I'm sure you can find it from the main Public Health page as well, so publichealthmdc.com. Encourage folks to stay up to date on the availability of vaccines. You also may have seen that Public Health released guidance as our schools consider what they will be doing next semester or next quarter. I want to remind folks that the decisions about whether or not to reopen schools are up to the individual school districts. Public Health is just providing guidance and advice on how to do that safely if the districts choose to do so. You can find more about that and the recommendations themselves on the Public Health website. In good news, Madison has received a transit-oriented development grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation. The DOT's Federal Transit Administration has announced approximately $6.2 million in grants to 9 projects in 7 states. Madison is one of those. And those grants support comprehensive planning efforts to improve access to public transportation. And it's provided through their pilot program for transit-oriented development planning, which is helping communities to examine ways to improve economic development and multimodal connectivity and encourage mixed-use development near transit stations, which is right up Madison's alley. That's exactly what we're looking to do with our bus rapid transit system. So this grant that Madison is receiving, almost $300,000 in federal money, which will be matched by city funds that were already budgeted. And they will allow us to look at transit-oriented land uses next to the bus rapid transit corridor and bus rapid transit station locations and how we can incentivize transit-oriented land use and mixed use. We expect to use the grant to develop a transit-oriented design overlay, which will give provisions and incentives to develop land uses that capitalize on corridors with high transit service, which in Madison will be bus rapid transit when that rolls out. So I'm really excited. Congratulations to the city staff that wrote the grant successfully, and I'm hopeful for the ways in this will improve our land use and transportation in the city. I also wanted to welcome Christy Kumar to our new equity division. She will be heading that division up starting in January. So that's in the Department of Civil Rights, and her title will be Equity and Social Justice Manager. It's a new position that we've created, and she will report to Norm Davis, the Civil Rights Department Director. She's coming to us from the Center for Students of Color at Brown University, and I'm sure we're all excited to welcome her. I also want to note that our Shared Streets program, I think which was really successful during the course of this year, trying to help people get outside safely, has come to an end with the snow. And thus, the Vilas Park Drive is going to reopen to allow for effective winter maintenance and community access to the Vilas Park amenities. So that will start on Monday, December 21st. I remind you that the speed limit is still 15 miles per hour, so don't get crazy on Vilas Drive there, but that street will be reopening. We are going to use the winter to evaluate both the Shared Streets program overall and particularly the Vilas Drive situation. So feel free to get in touch with traffic engineering on that, or to comment through the Vilas Park master plan process. Speaking of parks, you may have noticed that it's winter and we have an abundance of snow right now, which is pretty exciting. And that offers up all sorts of opportunities for us to get outside and enjoy our parks and have some winter fun. Just want to remind you how important it is to do physical activity year-round, and I think we all could stand to improve our mental health by getting outside and enjoying the snow. So parks have a lot of opportunities for folks to get outdoors and have fun. They've got cross-country skiing, ice skating. There's a new temporary fat biking trail and adding snowshoeing this year. So what you can expect is that there still will be equipment rentals available at Elver, Tenney, and Vilas Parks, but they will have modified hours. Restrooms will be open, but they will have adjusted capacity limits to account for COVID. Our warming shelters, unfortunately, are closed to the public this winter because of COVID-19. And you are required, of course, to wear a mask or face covering and to practice physical distancing with anyone outside of your household. If you want to purchase a permit for disc golf or cross-country skiing, they can be purchased online or by calling 608-266-4711 Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. The on-site kiosks for permits are closed. Be sure that you check the status of each of these amenities before you go, just to make sure everything's on. But for cross-country skiing, trail grooming will occur as we have the conditions and staff for it. You need a cross-country ski permit at Elver, Odana Hills, and Yahara Hills, but other trails are free to use. Right now, all of our ice skating rinks are closed, but we are monitoring the ice at all locations to make sure that it is safe to support the grooming equipment and you as you skate. Until an ice rink or lagoon is declared open, please don't go on the ice. We want everybody to be safe. Skating is free with your own skates. Elver, Tenney, and Vilas offer skate rentals. In terms of sledding, we have a lot of great sledding hills in Madison. You might check out Aldo Leopold Park, Arbor Hills, Berkeley, Elver. They do actually maintain the sledding hill at Elver. Garner Park, Heistend, Olbrich, Orlando Bell, and Warner Park all have good sledding hills. Elver Park is one of our most popular. It's lit for nighttime sledding beginning yesterday. Sleds will be available to purchase or rent from the Elver Park shelter beginning December 28th. We are also adding snowshoeing rentals at Vilas Park this year. And they've got a number of trails that they suggest for good snowshoeing and maps. You can visit cityofmadison.com/parks/snowshoeing for more details. Just to remind you, you can't snowshoe on the groomed cross-country ski trails or off-trail in a conservation park. You also can play disc golf in winter, apparently. Good for you if you're up for that. If you need a permit, again, you need to call 266-4711. But year-round disc golf baskets are available at Wexford and West Haven Trails Parks. And new this year, we have fat tire biking trails. We have a temporary winter trail at Sycamore Park Woods. It's more than a mile, can be accessed from North Thompson Drive, and takes bikers through a hilly, woody, single-track course. And the snowpack is maintained thanks to Capital Off-Road Pathfinders. That's a great partnership. And so if you have a fat tire bike, please check out that trail. You can learn all of this and much more at cityofmadison.com/parks/winterfun. So get out there and enjoy the snow. I do want to just remind folks, we talked about this last week, but I really encourage people to take the Shop Madison Pledge. As George said earlier, it's been a tough year economically for many of us and for many small businesses. And it's really important now more than ever that we support our small businesses. The people who work in them and own them are our friends and neighbors, and they're a critical part of what makes our neighborhoods special. Every dollar you spend locally not only stays in our community, it creates more jobs and generates more economic activity than when you shop at a national chain. So I'm asking you to take the Shop Madison Pledge. You can do that at visitmadison.com. And make sure today, by taking this pledge and shopping local, that our local businesses are here tomorrow. The pledge asks you to shop at 10 local businesses, either online or in person with your mask, by December 31st. I have already met my pledge and more, I think. I got all sorts of presents, books, chocolate, masks, hand sanitizer, hot sauce, I'm trying to remember what else, at local businesses this year for Christmas presents. I do want to acknowledge that not all of us have the disposable income to buy presents this year, but if you do, please take the Shop Madison Pledge and support our local business community. We are going to take a break from briefings for the holidays. So our next briefing will be on January 7th. I want to say happy holidays to all who celebrate, whatever you might celebrate. And then I want to end, as we usually do, with our community resources and upcoming meetings. So if you are homeless or in danger of losing your housing, please call 608-264-0549 or email housinginfo@cityofmadison.com. If you need help accessing internet or phone services, call the Public Service Commission at the state at 608-267-3595. If you need help finding a child care provider, call 608-216-7022. If you need help identifying emergency food options, please call the United Way of Dane County at 211. They can also hook you up with other services in our community, and there is no shame in asking for help. Call 211 or text your zip code to 898-211. And finally, the city is offering a free financial resource hotline to help residents navigate financial issues related to the COVID-19 pandemic. You can find more information at cityofmadison.com/financial hotline or call 608-315-5151. These resources and more are available at cityofmadison.com. Click on the community resources link, please. And then in upcoming meetings this week, today at 5, the Landlord and Tenant Issues Committee will meet, and at 6, the Body-worn Camera Feasibility Review Committee will meet. Friday the 18th at noon, the Police and Fire Commission has a meeting. And the information, these meetings are all virtual, so information on how to access them, the agendas, notes from previous meetings, and much more is all available at cityofmadison.com. Click on the meetings link or the calendar link. And that is what I have today. So we will take a few questions.
All right, we have a number of questions for Janelle and one for George, I believe.
Okay, well, we'll start with Janelle and questions for Public Health.
Good morning, Janelle.
Good morning.
The first question for you is, how do vaccinations play a role in reopening portions of Dane County or loosening restrictions as more are given the vaccine? At what point in time could we begin to see things open up?
I appreciate the question. I think it's a good one to ask and for us to all be thinking about. I can tell you we are thinking about that in Public Health Madison Dane County, but I will say that it is just too soon to tell. There is not enough information available to us to really be able to answer that with more detail and specificity.
Okay. And the next question says, when it comes to the order of vaccinations, what groups will most closely follow healthcare workers / at risk plus elderly? When could these groups expect to start vaccinations?
So if I have all my numbers and data correct, we have about 40,000 folks, I believe, in Dane County who are in the Tier 1A category. And we don't know how long or how much vaccine we will get when to be able to support making that available to that group. So it could be it could be a while before we get through this Tier 1A. It is likely that folks who are in other essential services will be prioritized next. We're waiting to hear more, and we're following what comes out of the ACIP and the state to hear more about what the priorities will be.
Okay. And the next question is, what do you think is attributing to the lower case numbers in Dane County? And are you anticipating a holiday spike as we enter the new year?
Yeah, I would like to think that there are a number of things that are contributing to the decrease that we have seen here in Dane County. I do think that the orders that we have put forward have supported that. I think that there has been strong messaging that's happened both at the local, the state, the national level and we are seeing the severity of this illness play out in communities in ways that we hadn't previously. So I think many things combined, personal experiences that folks have had, and everything else that I mentioned all play a role, hopefully, in what we've seen. As always, anytime there are moments in this past year, and as we look forward to the future where we are naturally drawn to come together, I am worried. We should be worried, and that is why we continue to ask folks to do things differently and to stay apart physically, connect socially, and in other ways so that we don't see a bump after the holidays.
And the last question we have for you, it's a bit of a tricky one. Would the Wisconsin Exposure Notification app that will launch next week in Wisconsin have decreased the number of COVID cases if it would have launched at an earlier date, since the technology has been available earlier this year and has been used by other states?
I think it's hard to say. I think I'm happy that this app will be available, but I don't know how we can make any comparisons, and we'll have to wait and see how it actually plays out.
Thank you, Janelle. We appreciate you. Good morning, George.
Good morning.
So this question says, how do you hope healthy community food systems funding will contribute to long-term recovery of Madison's local economy?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I guess I'd take a step back and say, we understand the limitations of this funding. I mean, it's $268,000. I mean, it's a drop in the bucket for what is needed from a long-term recovery perspective. But it's a step that we can take at the local level to try to spur action, to show that we are aware of the issues, to show that we care about the issues. But it by no means will solve the problem. I think, again, it's behavior modeling. It's ways to show that there are creative solutions out there if we continue to think about how we can repurpose our funding, how we can, help our businesses and our neighbors in need. But at the end of the day, I mean, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but it's $268,000. It's not going to solve the hole that a lot of businesses and that a lot of households are in. But at the city, we are doing what we can with what we have. And I think that some of the other actions and components of the fund, especially around regional food systems planning, will help set a foundation for us to think about the ramifications, the future ramifications, the long-term ramifications of COVID in our food system and how we then react to it.
Okay, thank you so much. That's what we have for you. Francesca may add her thoughts to the question. So Francesca, for your benefit, I will repeat the question. How do you hope healthy community food systems funding will contribute to the long-term recovery of Madison's local economy?
First, I'd like to echo all of George's comments that it is not a perfect solution, but it is a creative and collaborative use of the current funds. I think what's important to recognize, though, is that it's going to continue to encourage collaboration between different sectors, the nonprofit, government, and for-profit restaurants. These types of collaboration and sharing of resources are going to be essential in the future recovery of our city.
Thank you, Francesca. And Mayor, I believe they wanted your thoughts on this question as well.
Okay. Well, I don't have a lot to add on top of George and Francesca's excellent responses. I think that it's, part of what we are trying to do at the city and part of our job is to spur those collaborations and to bring people together. And I'm really just pleased that we are able to do that. It is not enough. Right? We at the city don't have enough funding to help everyone who needs help. And that is why it is so critically important that Congress do its job and get us the relief funding that we need in this country. It is just unconscionable that they have taken months and months and months to even get to talking about a deal on another relief package. And here we are at the absolute 11th hour, and they're all preparing to go home for the holidays, and they still don't have a deal. It's just really frustrating. We here at the local level, we are on the front lines of this pandemic. Our small businesses are on the front lines of this pandemic. Our communities are suffering, and we need the federal government to help us. I am very grateful for the funding that our community got through the CARES Act that went primarily to Dane County. But as good as that was, it wasn't enough, and we do need more help, and we need it now. So if our small businesses are going to survive, it is going to be not only because we are all working hard to collaborate and do what we can here at the local level, but because the federal government has stepped up and gotten relief funding to where it needs to go. And I want to be very clear that I do believe that relief funding needs to come directly to local governments because we are closest to the problem and closest to the solutions. It looks like that is not going to be part of this relief package, which is really disappointing. But I am hopeful that the relief package that's currently under discussion in Congress will help our small business community, will help people retain housing and stabilize their families, all of which will help us get through the winter here. But there is a big gap right now, and that is assistance from the federal government, and we really need Congress to do their job.
Thank you, Mayor. Those are the questions we have for today.
All right. Well, thank you, Linda. I'll just remind us all again that we're taking a break from briefings for the holidays, so we're taking the next 2 weeks off. Our next briefing will be January 7th, 2021, and I will see you all then. Thanks very much.